In 2006, Capcom had revitalized a certain niche of horror games and created what would be the start to a legendary series. Dead Rising is one of those games that really hits the spot and fulfills the dream that all fans of the zombie genre have had a number of times in their lives. What would I do if I was stuck in a mall in the middle of a zombie outbreak? With Frank West as the photojournalist extraordinaire, who's covered wars, you can enjoy yourself while you stay alive and uncover the conspiracy. There was so much freedom in this game that it gave you many choices on what you wanted to do with your limited time. With many zombies on screen at once and an unlimited supply of weapons at your disposal, it was no wonder this game got to be so popular. It's unique, dark, funny and challenging, and really set a new bar for video game innovation. Today we'll be taking a look at the European, North American and Japanese box arts. The European cover art just absolutely shows the dream of playing a game set during a large-scale zombie outbreak in which the horde is many and options are few. Here we see Willamette Mall that's filled with zombies. They're all over the lower level, the upper level, and even crowding down the escalator. It's a horrifying sight and death is everywhere. That's one of the main things that this game really pushed for, a large amount of zombies on screen, and they pulled it off well. It's a no-brainer that they wanted this to be the focal point of the game's advertising, and I remember seeing this and wanted to play it right away just because of the enjoyment of killing many zombies at once. The point of view seems to be taken from the eye of whoever's in the mall. Now, it could be the obvious and be from Frank West's perspective, as this sight is very common for him during the game, and perhaps is a picture he's taken as part of his scoop. It could be the player's perspective as we're immersed into the horror of Willamette Mall, and the artist wanted it to be kind of an insert for the player's enjoyment. It could even be one of the survivors who Frank needs to rescue, and this was a particularly horrible moment before they were able to escape and hide before being rescued by the man himself. Or, it could even be moments before this horde of ravenous undead found another unfortunate victim, and this is them mere moments before their horrible death, and a short time before they join the ranks of the shambling dead. Who knows? This very zombie could be one that you've killed during the game at some point. The location is a bit of a mystery, as this place doesn't actually appear in the game due to the amount of contradictions. The only place that has an escalator that's on both sides with a parting in the middle is the one found in the entrance plaza, but that has a stair set going up the middle, whereas this one seems to be a solid metal platform. We can also see some shops beside them via the signs, but that same escalator doesn't have any shops next to them, just a wall and the entrance to Paradise Plaza. So it's unclear where this is supposed to be, but it does seem like the entrance plaza, maybe an early iteration of it, or just one that was used for the design of the cover. I was able to find this larger image of the cover art, and it gives us a little more scope of the surroundings. The shop on the right hand side is Wonder Jewels, which is located in the Wonderland Plaza. The one on the left hand side is what appears to be another version of Bachman's Bookporium, found in Paradise Plaza. And the one we can't see behind the title seems to be a non-existent location, as I couldn't find any store beginning with Dell. I even modded my game and took the free camera around the mall to look at every shop name in each section. I was quite invested in trying to find it, so I even went out to the street area too, but no luck. This location seems to not be a thing in the final product. The design of the mall is drastically different, as on the cover it has a sleek, white and modern looking ceiling and walkway, including the escalator, whereas in-game it looks to be more of a classic warm wood design. The colour scheme of this version plays very well into the theme of zombies, as it looks deathly with its shades of blues, whites and hints of green. Everywhere you look it's pale and faded and just reeks of death. Had they kept the in-game design and colour scheme of the mall for the box art, I don't think the effect would have been as impactful. The zombies themselves all seem to be pretty varied and designed in very unique ways, in that these possibly could all be based on real people. The ones in front I could see being more default and plain, but certain zombies in the crowd, such as these, really feel like they were taken from actual reference photos. Similar to how competition winners had their likeness put into Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 1 to be unique designs of certain walkers. I thought that there may have been a zombie or two here that were in the game or a reference to something, but I don't think they are. The only one that made me think of anything was this one bald zombie on the right, who looks similar to the zombie on the poster of the 1978 horror movie Dawn of the Dead. Speaking of, due to Dead Rising having a very similar premise to George A. Romero's movie, which is set during a zombie outbreak in a Philadelphia mall, there is a disclaimer put along the bottom to let the audience know that this game is not related to it in any way. Since this fake sticker, which looks as if it's peeling, was there at the time of the original Xbox 360 release, it seems as though Capcom knew that there were some things that could be seen as too similar and put this on the front as an attempt to form some preventative measure from any lawsuits. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work as MKR Group, the rights holders to the original 1978 movie and its 2004 remake, sued Capcom in 2008 and took them to court, claiming that they copied too much for it to be a coincidence. Luckily for Capcom, the courts deemed the suit to be in their favour, and the case was dropped. The logo has unique font to it, and oddly, despite being two words, is presented as one by there being next to no space in between. It goes from a deathly pale blue to a white, which gives off a putrid corpse imagery, and is complemented by the black shadowing behind it, making it look even more grim, as well as the few specks of blood on the N and the G at the end. To give it a nice little stylized detailing, the space in the second D is a zombie. Finally, underneath that, we have a reflection of the words above, giving it a somewhat 3D look. The North American cover stands out as being what could be described as a very typical Hollywood-esque depiction of Dead Rising, and that's not a bad thing. Here we see our protagonist, Frank West, in the middle of Willamette Mall, surrounded by zombies, and he's using all he can to ensure his own survival, which in this case involves defending himself by the use of a television set. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Frank is here acting like a rough and ready action hero, which is very fitting for the North American cover. American depictions of things like movies and games seem to focus more around guns, explosion, violence, action heroes, and characters that appear to be badasses and seen as cool by the audience. It's somewhat both a stereotype and a pattern, especially in the 90s, 2000s and 2010s Hollywood productions. Frank fits that description quite well, as even though his profession is a photojournalist, he is shown to be able and willing to put himself into the action with his number of survival skills by the use of many different things found around the mall. The explosion behind him really plays into the heroic theme too, as you have to have explosions behind you to get that extra cool look. It really adds that layer of over-the-top action movie moment. It took me a long time to actually figure out what the explosion on the cover was, because it seems to come from nowhere and is only there to give a cool effect for Frank. But I'll let you know soon enough if you don't know yet either. Speaking of using different things found around the mall, Frank holding a television/VCR hybrid is a fun way to show one of the more creative mechanics of the game, and that's the ability to pick up a lot of various items, from small to big, such as stacks of CDs to a park bench, to use against zombies. Some will be more effective than others, but it's enjoyable to see how each of them are against the hordes. I did actually try to find this set he's holding, if it was an actual make, but I wasn't able to find anything. Either my searching skills weren't that great, or it's nothing more than a fictional set that was made just for the game. If you have any idea though, please, let me know. While the Frank West depicted on the cover is a fair resemblance to his appearance in-game, there are some noticeable differences. He looks a little more defined in his face, he's built as less stocky, his nose is a different shape, and his face doesn't appear to be as rectangular. On the cover, I think that he looks a lot cooler, but that's likely due to the amount of detail via the CGI artwork. But there is also a reason why he doesn't look as cool in-game. According to the original producer, Keiji Inafune, they wanted their protagonist to be an average Joe. Just an ordinary American guy who is as far removed from typical Japanese good-looking anime-type heroes. So in the end, they decided to make the protagonist not conventionally attractive, have him have a bit of weight to him, and not have him stand out in any way that people would see him as that cool. It's also interesting to note that this is the only cover that actually shows the protagonist, let alone anyone alive, on the front cover. Having lots of zombies shown on the cover again shows the mechanic of having lots on screen at once to enjoy. I couldn't find anything specific about these zombies either as such, but I did happen to notice that this one here looks almost identical to the one found on the European cover. The mall area shown here is very different from the final product as well, but this time it's actually confirmed to be the main entrance of the entrance plaza. We can see the layout of the two parallel stair sets as they go up, then angle inward, the yellow and red hanging banners of the mall, and we can see here the moon and the grey sphere of the clock statue in the middle. I was confused at first how exactly the moon and the sphere are at this angle, but then I figured out that it's on its side, because the explosion is the statue falling over and crashing to the ground. This never happens in game, which led to a lot of my confusion about this cover. So this particular event and situation is cover exclusive. However, taking a deeper look at this version of the entrance, it appears to blend the entrance plaza and the food court together. The area itself is the sleek white colouring as we've seen in the previous cover, and not the clay brown colour it is in game. There's the Dreams ice cream parlour that's located on the ground level of the food court, not the second floor of the entrance plaza. The red shop across from it seems very likely to be Jade Paradise due to the colour scheme and the spherical lanterns out front, which is an Asian food place that's also located on the first floor of the food court, and is in fact right next door to Dreams ice cream. But what makes it even more confusing is that above Dreams, we see the Jade Paradise logo, and above what seems to be Jade Paradise is the Dreams logo. I'm really not sure why they would want to have the same logo printed twice, let alone have the wrong logos placed above the shops. It is really cool to see how they design these covers by picking parts from different areas and meshing them together, but it's also pretty confusing when it comes to the actual locations and their surroundings. There's not much to say about the logo as it's the same as the European one, but for some reason the North American version has the top left corner obscured by unnecessary shading that seems to emanate from the logo. You'll also notice that the Dawn of the Dead disclaimer isn't printed on what looks like a fake sticker, but instead in an orderly black box with white text. This makes it look a lot more official somehow, like they were making it look more serious, perhaps to make the lawsuit deflection more prominent with their North American market. The Japanese cover, like the European one, is conveying the more immediate threat of the undead horde. Here we see another ambiguous perspective from a viewer who has found themselves in this terrible situation at Willamette. We can see that they're looking up at the skylight of the mall with a bunch of undead creatures staring back at them, ready to devour. This time we have a film strip theme across the box that advertises the photography mechanic that's found in the game. Much like with the European's interpretive point of view, this one also has several possibilities as to whose perspective we're looking through. As before, it could of course be Frank West in a tight spot, a survivor moments before escape, or an unfortunate victim and soon to be zombie. But it seems with the film strip here, I can't help but speculate that it's not a person at all, and is likely a photo that was taken. Photography is a big mechanic of the game, both in gameplay and the story. Frank West is a photojournalist here to cover the scoop and relies on his skill to let the world know of the events that have taken place in this small town in Colorado. For the player, it's a way to earn extra experience points and upgrade Frank's abilities. Somehow Frank managed to get an interesting shot of the zombies crowding around a certain area and looking down. Perhaps he distracted and lured them with something, and decided this would be a great shot for his scoop. Horror with a little drama, showing the reality of what's happening in Willamette. Probably got a decent amount of PP for it too.
Fantastic!
The film strip doesn't exactly match up with reality though. The square holes in the side are right to be empty, but if this was a film strip, we wouldn't be seeing the zombies outright through the middle, as that makes it seem like it's also an empty space, making the strip useless. But given the theme of the game as well as the main character's job, I feel it's safe to assume this is a shot taken and not from the perspective of any living person. I feel like the film strip is a nice way of showing the theme and gameplay mechanic of photography, but I also think it's a bit too blocky and somewhat cuts off the picture a little, or it's not giving us the whole picture. It's a similar feeling when you get a version of a game like Greatest Hits or Platinum, that just puts the picture in a small box with an annoyingly chunky border that takes up too much room and takes the full effect away from the original image. That's what this feels like to me. The image itself is really good and has a great layout, but the big black bar through the middle and sides make me want to push it out the way and see the full image behind it. Also, similar to the European version, The only things that are really shown on the cover are a horde of gruesome looking zombies and a very small section of the mall. Judging by the skylight above and the railings on the upper floor, I can only assume this place is once again the entrance plaza. Due to it not having much more information to go on, I can't say for certain, but seeing as though the other locations haven't entirely been accurate to their in-game counterparts, it's likely another non-existent place. And with the zombies, there aren't any notable ones aside from the two at the bottom. The one on the right is on the European cover, and the one on the left is on both the European and North American one, oddly making him a constant between all three covers. The logo is basically the same as the other two versions, only this time you can't really tell there's any shadowing around it, if there is any at all, due to the black film strip it's placed on, and the Japanese title underneath, which is simply a direct translation of the game's title, Dedo Raijingu. The bottom right panel notifies that this game contains explicit violence and gore. The white box is the disclaimer that it has nothing to do with Dawn of the Dead. The purple box signifies this game's genre as Zombie Paradise Action, which I think is a fantastic way to describe this type of game. And finally, the 0Z rating means that it's not suitable for anyone under the age of 18. Very quickly, we also have the Steelbook version, a UK exclusive limited edition physical copy that's a sleek metallic box with a unique design on the cover. It's a fairly plain and self-explanatory cover with the blank silver background, the logo in the middle, and the zombie hands coming in from the sides. There's not really anything to say about the logo that hasn't already been said, as it's the exact same one used in the European and North American versions, Japanese too, but minus the translation underneath. The Steelbook version once again has the disclaimer sticker about Dawn of the Dead, looking very similar to the European one, only this time you'll notice that it seems a bit more pristine and new. There's no peeling anywhere. While this detail may be pretty small, it actually signifies one thing. Every disclaimer is unique and has been designed that way for each version. I'm not sure why they would make each of them that different, but it's an interesting thing to do nonetheless. One last thing to mention that pertains to each of them, despite it not being part of the cover art exactly, every box says that it's only on Xbox 360, which was true at the time, but has been outdated since 2016 when it came to Steam. I would say that it could be argued that it hasn't been exclusive since 2009 when it was released as a port on Nintendo Wii under the title of Dead Rising Chop Till You Drop, but there are quite a number of changes, both good and bad, so I wouldn't really class it as the same game. Each of these covers brings very similar themes, but are unique in their own ways. The mall setting in the background, and the zombies crowding round, minus the Steelbook of course. If I had to choose one, I'd say that the European one stands out to me the most. There's something about it that has a nice level of horror, but in a subtle way, and the layout looks really pleasing. I do like the North American art too, so that would be a close second, followed by the Japanese and Steelbook. Thanks for watching. What do you think about them? And which is your favourite? Let me know.